Welcome one and all, and Shabbat Shalom. So glad to have you here in the sanctuary at Ahavat Shalom. Brachim Habaim. Welcome and Shabbat Shalom to those watching from home or on your computers. Rabbi Matt Berger. I'm joined on the bima with our soloists, Allison Rosoff. Right behind me are B'nai Mitzvah, Rowan and Isabella. Down at the piano with another lovely hat, Joy Katzen-Guthrie. This time in black, our accompanist. Tonight we celebrate and welcome the extended Horwitz family as Isabella and Rowan celebrate their special day, becoming a bat and bar mitzvah. B'nai mitzvah is just the plural of that. We're going to begin either by looking at the screen where you'll see the words of Psalm 96, Shir Chadash, sing a new song, all the earth, a new song. You can also find these words in your prayer books, Mishkan Tefillah, dwelling place of prayer, all the way in the back on page 344. Excuse that. Hopefully they'll be able to see the picture-in-picture at home, but we have it nice and bright here in the sanctuary. And let's sing our opening song, Shir Chadash, a new song. Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai shir hadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. On the earth, new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song. Yeah. Love that spirit. Love that ruah. All right, we're going to get in the mood to light some Shabbos candles by singing Debbie Friedman's Light These Lights. Light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. It's my pleasure to invite forward to the bima to help us light the Shabbat candles, the blessing of which may be found on page 2. Stephanie Horowitz, Beverly Horowitz, Dina Horowitz, Melanie Lewis, Elaine Prager, and Lauren Prager to help us light the candles. You're totally on the move. I like your kippah too.
Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign Spirit of the world, who commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. Thank you so much for helping us light the Shabbat candles. And now we'll turn to one of the traditional songs of the Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming Shabbat service. On page 24, you'll find the words to Shalom Aleichem, peace be to you, messengers of the Most High, the words of Shalom Aleichem. Shalom, Malachei HaSharek, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ile Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Yehi Melech, Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seidkem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Yehi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Continue on 26, making our way to Shemanis blessings by chanting the half or Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, B'yama divrach urtei v'yamnich malchutei, Mechayechon uvyamechon, uvchayet kol beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, uvizman kariv, v'yimaru amen. Yishmei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam lamei amaya, yitbarach, yibarach, v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar, v'yiroman, v'yitnasei, v'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yit'alal, shemei dekudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, tamin ram be'ama, v'yimaru amen.
We rise for the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu, found on page 28.
Adonai Hamivorach, Baruch Adonai Hamivorach, Leolam Vaed, Baruch Adonai Hamivorach, Leolam Vaed.
Please join me with a prayer for creation, Ma'ariv Aravim, on page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv. Words of Ahavat Olam, great love found on the middle of 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo. We'll sing Shema Yisrael together. Hear, O Israel. First, open up our eyes.
Open up our eyes,
Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes. Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivot Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue chanting the words of the Shema. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, b'shiftecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'aderet, uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha, ukshartam le'ot ayadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha. Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher otzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Let's continue on page 39. Words of truth and faith. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. You'll find the words of Mi Chamocha, who is like you, God, on 40. Like you, no one, who is like you, oh God. Who is like you, no one, who is like you, oh God. Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedar B'Kodesh Nora Tehilot Osef Eleh. Who is like you, O God? Like you, no one, who is like you, oh God. Who is like you, no one, who is like you, oh God. Continue on 42, a prayer for protection and shelter called the Hashkivenu. Grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom, Ve'amirdenu Shomereinu L'Chaim, Uvros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Uvros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things,
This time it's my pleasure to call forward Isabella and Rowan to lead us in the opening prayers of the Tefillah, our standing prayers which begin on page 46 and continue on even pages as we ask God to open up our lips in prayer.
Adonai sifatai tiftaf ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Alyon Gomel Chasdim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Lifnei B'nehem Lema'an Shamo Be'achava Melech Ozer Umoshiach Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibol Le'olam Adonai Mechaye Hakol Atah Rav Lehoshiach Mashiv Ha'uach Umovid Hagashem Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Kayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Mi Chamocha Ba'al Gevurot Umi Domeh Lach Melech Meimit Chaye Matzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman atah lechachayot hakol baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol.
And on 52 for holiness, Atah Kadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh, Kadoshim b'chol yom ya'alucha sela, Baruch atah Adonai ha'el ha'kadosh. Feel free to be seated. Let's all say Yasher Koach, which is the way to say well done in Hebrew. Toward the end of the service, they'll be helping us lead the Shabbat Kiddush over the fruit of the vine. We'll continue now with the intermediate prayers of the Tefillah, first for the holiness of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. A prayer asking that God's presence always remains with us wherever we are in the world. Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shehinato Litzion. And we'll share some words of gratitude as we celebrate Simcha, an important milestone in life on this Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Hatov Shimcha U'cha Na'eh L'chodot. And on page 60, for a world badly in need of peace, especially in the Ukraine, we'll offer the words of Birkat Shalom. Grant abundant peace in Israel, your people forever, for you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people and the world with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. And for our moments of reflection, we'll be singing the words of Yehiyu l'Ratzon. May the words of our mouths be acceptable. You'll find these words on the screen as well as on page 62.
Liratzon
Now turn to words of health and healing in our prayer, the Mishaberach, which you can find on page 253 in your prayer books. As we call to mind and to heart individuals in need of strength and courage and healing at this time. Think of Jacqueline Albin, Elaine Afandoulis, Lori Bauk, Mary Bellis, Yonatan Ruven, Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Babs Brown, Richard Carlson, Matthew Deinhardt, Harry Fleisch, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Sidel Freifeld, Jeannie Fusaro, Susan Herron, Howard Markowitz, Cole Montgomery, Melissa Miller, William Miller, Michael Ranzino, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Abby Richmond, Linda Roberts, Gary Rosenberg, Stephanie Ross, Kay Schleich, Dennis Schulman, Arlene Charlotte, Jeff Stark, Doris Stoyer, and Marty Wassoff. And if there are other names to add at this time for healing.
Lily Morey and my father, George Stark. Misheberach Avotenu Mikor habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say
Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say A Jewish man was about to be knighted by the Queen of England, and as part of the ceremony, he needs to say a phrase in Latin, which is following the custom that's been followed for hundreds of years. Now, being a bit of a nervous hilaria, or a nervous wreck, as you'd say in Yiddish, our soon-to-be knight practiced the Latin phrase from morning until evening, day after day. And he said to myself, you know, the more I learn this phrase cold, the less likely I'll mess it up. It's a sound plan. Finally, the day of the ceremony arrives. Each prospective knight kneels before the queen, is knighted, and then recites the Latin phrase like clockwork. Then it's the Jewish guy's turn. He kneels as per the custom. The queen knights him by a light tap of the sword on each shoulder, but all of a sudden he forgets his line. Within a few seconds, beads of sweat are running down his forehead, so he thinks of the first non-English phrase that comes to mind. Manishana halayla hazeh mikol halelot. The queen then turns to her advisors and asks, so why is this night different from all the other nights? It's a classic joke and appropriate for the season because just yesterday we entered Nissan, which in addition to being a fairly decent car company, is also the name of the Hebrew month, which includes the Feast of Freedom, otherwise known as Pesach or Passover. I'll let you in on a pro tip. You don't even need a calendar to figure out when Passover begins. All you need to do is go outside and look up at the moon. When the moon starts getting full, you know that you're getting pretty close. And when the moon's at its brightest, then you need to whip out those Passover Haggadot or Seder booklets and get down to business. Of course, there are short Seders and there are long Seders. Every year in the Haggadah, we retell the story of the longest Seder, which features 5 rabbis from Bnei Brak, which is now a suburb of Tel Aviv. Orthodox back then, Orthodox still today. This Fab Five of rabbis stayed up all night discussing the minutiae of the Exodus story, as you'll see on the image on the screen. And they would have kept going if not for their disciples, their students, who came in the next morning and said, "Genug already," another Yiddish word which means enough. On the flip side of the coin, the shortest Seder in the world clocks in at about 2 minutes. Penned by Michael Rubiner, a journalist who's written for Rolling Stone and the New York Times, it gives you all of the highlights in about 120 seconds. You'll be drinking your first cup of wine or grape juice in about 5 or 6 seconds and eating shortly thereafter. This is the unabridged version. Opening prayers. Thanks God for creating wine, drink wine. Thanks God for creating produce, eat the produce, eat the parsley. Overview. Once we were slaves in Egypt, now we're free, that's why we're doing this. The 4 questions. What's up with the matzah? What's the deal with the horseradish? What's with the dipping of the herbs twice? And what's the whole slouching at the table business? Answers. There are 4. 1, we left Egypt in a hurry. We didn't have time to make good bread. 2, life was bitter, like horseradish. 3, it's called symbolism. And 4, free people are allowed to slouch. Now, I've already told you about the 5 rabbis who talked all night in Bnei Brak, so I'll jump to the next step. The 4 types of children at the Passover Seder and how to deal with them. The wise child, explain the rules of Passover. The simple child, explain Passover slowly. The silent child, explain Passover loudly. And the wicked child, explain Passover vigorously. Speaking of children, we hid some matzah. Whoever finds it gets $5. The story of Passover. It was a long time ago. We were slaves in Egypt. Pharaoh is a nightmare. We cry out for help. God brings plagues upon the Egyptians. We escape, bake some matzah. God parts the Red Sea. We make it through. The Egyptians aren't so lucky. Then we wander 40 years in the desert, eat our miracle food, manna, get the Torah, wind up in Israel, get a new temple, and enjoy several years without being persecuted again. And this, he suggests, to take out the brisket from the oven and let it cool at this point. The 10 plagues, blood, frogs, lice, you name it. The singing of Dayenu. If God had gotten us out of Egypt and not punished our enemies, it would have been enough. If God punished our enemies and not parted the Red Sea, that too would have been enough. If God parted the Red Sea, Then he suggests remove the gefilte fish from the fridge now. Eat some matzah, drink some more wine, slouch once again. Thanks God for everything. The meal is served. It's about 2 minutes. I have to admit it has a lot of the basic elements, with the notable exclusions of lighting the festival candles, washing your hands, not once but twice, describing what's on the Seder plate, which is pretty important, and explaining the reason why we drink 4 cups of wine as opposed to 1, 2, or 3, which is, by the way, linked to the 4 action verbs used for how God liberated the Jews from Egypt. This year, I'm set to lead 4 Seders, which for me is a personal record. 1 for our temple's religious school, 1 for a church, 1 for my family, and 1 here at Temple. Usually you only do 2. This year, 4. You can probably guess which one is a first for me. About a week ago, I was asked to facilitate a Seder using a Haggadah that a local church had put together, but after looking it over, I knew I wouldn't be comfortable leading it as is, as there were references and inferences about the connections between the Passover story, the Gospels, and Jesus. Instead, I asked, after saying I'd love to lead the Seder, if I could bring one of my own Haggadahs, and I told them I'd bring enough copies for all of us. And they said, great, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm looking forward to it because a large group from the same church visited Temple Ahavat Shalom and met with me in the sanctuary last year to learn about Judaism. It was a great and meaningful time that we had together. But you should know, not every Jew is comfortable with the notion of leading a Passover Seder for Christians. After refreshing my memory and taking a look at some classic text, there are 3 top reasons why not. 1, that the Seder is a Jewish ritual, and holding one at a church is akin to having communion in a synagogue. To this I'd respond, there are hundreds of Jewish congregations right now that are housed in churches. And if a bar or bat mitzvah can take place in a church, mind you, after covering the cross, surely a Seder can take place there too. 2, the Christian interpretation of the Passover story isn't authentic because equating Jesus with the Passover lamb offering distorts the meaning of the ritual. My response is that every single religion interprets stories, or at the very least takes elements of a story that's written long ago and finds new meaning in the modern day. Simply put, we don't have to always agree about the interpretation, and that's okay. And finally, 3, as the poet Robert Frost wrote, good fences make good neighbors. This verse, found in his poem Mending Wall, a good New Englander, introduces us to a speaker and the speaker's neighbor. At the onset of spring, they meet at the stone wall that separates their 2 properties. Then the speaker notes dryly that perhaps they don't even need a wall because, quote, my apple trees will never get across to your side, while the neighbor makes the point about the good fences. Applying this to the religious world, we might say that the boundaries between faiths actually help us preserve the identity of each of them and the integrity of each of them. Because while there are many similar ethics and values that bridge the gap between different religions, there are certainly some differences. And to my mind, as I've always said, there's enough room in the world for all of us. Sometimes the most profound and deep learning comes from authentic shared experiences. It helps us to breathe life into sacred stories in a way that simply reading a book on its own or the Haggadah on its own can never do. The story of Passover is about freedom. And one of the greatest freedoms that we're blessed with in this country is the ability to share our treasured religious heritage and customs with the wider community and world around us. For this reason, I'm honored to lead a Passover Seder at one of the neighborhood churches this year. So in 2 weeks' time, whether you take out your plague-friendly pocket-size Pesach primer or crack open your huge, weighty Passover Haggadah for an all-night Seder like our quintet of rabbis from B'nai Brak, consider this hypothesis written by the comedic author Alan Zweibel. If the standard Israelite wanders 500 steps per day, this is way back when, with an average distance of 2 feet per step, that works out to about 2,000 feet a day. So, in 40 years, even if the Israelites didn't wander on Shabbat, major Jewish holidays and festivals and the like, they would wander about 12 million feet. This means, starting in Egypt, the Israelites could have easily, with very minimal exertion, wandered all the way to Norway. Well, thankfully, our biblical ancestors ended up in Israel with the help of God's divine GPS, the pillar of fire and the cloud. But what a long, strange trip that would have been for the Israelites. They'd certainly need a hat, mittens, and some scarves. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to continue with the words of Aleinu, saying goodbye to our 5 rabbis from B'nai Brak, the Fab Five. And the words of Aleinu, the adoration, are found on page 282. Please rise as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabech la'adon hakol, la'atik gedolah le'yotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam kelkenu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamanam, va'anaknu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim livnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. ונאמר, היה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You'll find the words to Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 294 of your prayer books. So we think of families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days mourning their loved one. As we remember Marnie Schoenfeld, daughter-in-law of Babette and Robert Schoenfeld, sister-in-law of Jeremy and Allison Schoenfeld, Clara Graff, mother of Jason Graff, and Edie Ekber, aunt of Nancy Meza. We also mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing of the loved ones who've died during the season in years past. We fondly remember Leonard Bolnick, Morris Broder, Emmanuel Cohen, Helen Epstein, Pauline Fish, Marvin Goldman, Israel Nathan Goldsmith, Beatrice Goldsmith, Hazel Golub, Mendel Granoff, Izzy Kassoff, Adele Katz, Joseph Katz, Louis Kovac, Shem Tov Mala, Violet Martin, Rachel Novak, Arlene Rosenblatt, Michael Shapiro, Joanne Sorkers, Len Sternbane, Delcy Supo, Louis Unger, and Margot Werner. And we especially recall Richard Prager at this time. Are there any other names to add for Yahrzeit? We say Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people continue to be a loving benediction in their loved ones' lives as we offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, Chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam ulamei al-maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei d'kudusha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom d'imramav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, Ukraine, and the world, as we say, Amen. Be seated. My pleasure once again to call upon Isabella and Rowan to lead us in the Shabbat Kiddush, which you'll find right on the screen, also on page 5 in your prayer books.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzah vanu v'shabbat kodsho be'achava uvratzon hinchi lanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom tehillah lemikraei kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim ki vanu kidashta v'charta le'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'achava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha'shabbat. L'chaim to life.
Again, let's say Yasher Koach. It's really good. It's grape juice.
It's delicious. There's
Yeah.
grape juice.
You never know what face you're going to get, you know? Enjoy. And all of us will have the opportunity to say the blessing over the bread, the motzi, which you'll find right on the screen here, to enjoy with grape juice. You're out. Okay. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful bread. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Motzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Say b'teavon, enjoy. Pleasure at this time to call forward Don Hirschman, representing the board and leadership of our congregation, to share some Shabbat announcements.
What a delightful service, and folks, it ain't over yet. On behalf of the board of directors, I welcome you, and I'm so glad all of you are here, and all of you at home are watching. Many, many thanks to Rabbi Matt. Allison, you always bring such joy to our services. And joy, I always look forward to which hat you're going to wear, in addition to the great music. Wonderful service. Our tech team brings it to you a little bit better here, so we can all hear, and brings it to you out in television land, Bruce Lowett and Saul Tave. Tave is a family affair. We'll get to that in a moment. The next Brotherhood book meeting, club meeting, is Sunday at 10:30. We're going to discuss The Measure, a novel, and I won't tell you much about it except the story is, what if we knew how long our lives were going to be? Whether it would be short or whether it would be long. Whether you've read the book or not, and if you haven't, please come anyway, because it's going to be a very, very interesting discussion. Also on Sunday, the Sisterhood presents the family matzah bake at 12:30. All ages are welcome. Please RSVP using the link. The rabbi, you did a great job introducing the next announcement. Passover Seder on April 6th. There are still some openings, and please RSVP. This is a very, very, very important time. This is a universal holiday, as the rabbi said about the church. It is a holiday for all of us who are free, who want to celebrate that freedom. For those who are not free, we pray for their freedom. It gets choked up here, just a moment. And for those who are fighting to stay free, we can pray for their success. For the last few years, we haven't been able to really have Seders, or if we could, it was in fear. Now we can actually enjoy a Seder. The rabbi will be leading us, and he will be able to musically strut his stuff. And I urge all of you to please, as a famous radio station in the area says, make the call. Either on the website or Monday morning, make the call. Come and enjoy Seder with us. It's a great holiday, and we can celebrate all of those things, and we can celebrate that we can celebrate, that we're not afraid of catching an incurable disease when we get here. So please come. Speaking of those who are fighting for their freedom, support the Ukrainian community at the Strauss Center April 14th. Local Ukrainian musicians like Ilona, who sang here just a few weeks ago. Remember, she had that beautiful, beautiful voice and that large, almost guitar that sounded like a harp. I mean, it was just an amazing sound. April 14th at the Strauss Center. Empty Nesters. The group is ready to get back to theater shows and dinner. Another sign of normalcy coming back. Join them May 20th at O'Keefe's Restaurant, a famous Jewish place, followed by Beauty and the Beast at the Francis William Playhouse. An email to Phoebe Tave. You can look it up. Please join. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. Next Friday, intergenerational Shabbat service will feature our 3rd and 4th graders. Will begin at 7 p.m. They are so cute at 3rd and 4th grade. They're not teenagers yet. Come, enjoy them, support them. They'll be teenagers soon enough. As I've said many, many times when I've given the epidural for a lady in labor and the delivery is successful, I say, enjoy it now. Before you know it, they'll want the keys to the car. Following the service, the Horowitz family, and Mazel Tov to Isabel and Rowan, you did great, you're going to do great tomorrow, are going to sponsor a kiddush. And those of us who come to services for Joy's music, for Joy's hats, and Allison's music, some of us come for the food. It's all right. Whatever reason you came, we're delighted you're here. Shabbat Shalom.
All right, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much. And we will conclude our Shabbat service first with the singing of Shir Hamalot, which you'll see some selections from Psalm 126, a song of ascents. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Umevorah, Shabbat Shalom, Umevorah, Az Yemale Skopinu, Ushoreinu Verina, Az Yomru Ba'agoim, Higdil Adonai Lasot Imele, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. And our prayer for health and well-being, please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation to maintain our health and the health of those around us. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for joining us for our service, and good night to all of you who are watching from home.